The 73rd emergency session of the Galactic Council began, as all 72 previous emergency sessions had, 4 hours behind schedule. The grand chamber of interspecies deliberation buzzed with the sounds of 27 different species communicating their impatience in their native tongues. High Councillor Grakthar, a towering crustacean-like being with an exoskeleton that glimmered with bureaucratic importance, tapped his ceremonial gavel against the sound-amplifying crystal. The gavel, made of compressed administrative paperwork from the last millennium, made a satisfying thunk. "This emergency session will now commence," Grakthar announced, his mandibles clicking with authority. "Our first and only agenda item, the increasingly disturbing human obsession with other species' biology." Representative Quiblix, a gelatinous mass of translucent purple who represented the Blorbian Federation, rippled anxiously. "Their research requests have increased 300% in the last solar cycle. 300%. They've requested tissue samples from 17 protected species, including the sacred membrane of the Verlonian floating jellybugs," added Ambassador Trill, whose own membrane fluttered with indignation. "Those are our cousins, 47 times removed." Grakthar waved a dismissive claw. Yes, we've all received the 43-page report, including the appendices and the unnecessarily colorful pie charts." "I made those pie charts," muttered Delegate Zorn, a reptilian being whose species prided themselves on their graphical presentations. "The charts were lovely, Delegate Zorn," Grakthar said diplomatically. "The gradient effect on the samples requested by Galactic Quadrant was particularly moving." From the back of the chamber, a mechanical voice interjected. "Statistical analysis indicates human interest in xenobiological studies has risen by 724.8% since their admission to the Council. This exceeds standard curiosity parameters by 678.3%. This came from Unit PX7, the AI representative of the Machine Collective, whose blinking lights somehow managed to convey deep suspicion." Ambassador Noor, a being composed entirely of sentient gas contained within an environment suit, expanded with concern. "What exactly are they doing with all this biological data? My third cousin twice removed volunteered a gas sample and reported that the humans kept it in something called a mason jar and giggled every time they opened it." "Perhaps," suggested Councillor Rex, an arthropod known for paranoid conspiracy theories, "they're creating biological weapons. Or worse, reality television." A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. "Order. Order." Grakthar's gavel came down hard enough to crack. "We must approach this methodically, as outlined in subsection 7.3.4 of the Council Procedural Guidelines, revision 42.9, at footnote 118. Professor Lomu, the most venerable member of the Council, unfurled all 6 of his sensory tentacles. "In my 900 years of Council service, I've learned one thing about humans. They're weird, but rarely malicious. I propose a formal investigation before we jump to conclusions." "Seconded," chirped Representative Pip, the smallest council member at just 6 centimeters tall. "Very well," Grakthar said, relief evident in his voice. "We shall dispatch observers to monitor human xenobiological research facilities. Any volunteers?" The chamber fell so silent you could hear a quantum particle drop. "Fine," Grakthar sighed, his exoskeleton drooping slightly. "We'll use the randomized selection algorithm. May the odds be in everyone else's favor." And with that, the fate of human-alien relations was left to whatever poor souls the Council's notoriously glitchy algorithm would select. Just another day in galactic bureaucracy. Dr. Milo Jenkins hummed tunelessly as he pipetted fluorescent blue liquid into a series of test tubes. His lab coat, once white, but now a canvas of multicolored stains that told the story of his career, hung loosely on his lanky frame. A badge clipped to his pocket read Dr. Milo Jenkins, Head Xenobiologist, Earth Science Division, with "Don't Panic" scrawled underneath in permanent marker. Calibrating for Andorian metabolic variance, he muttered into his recorder. "Note to self, their hemoglobin analog turns chartreuse when exposed to caffeine. It would make fantastic party trick. Further note, do not mention party trick in official report." Milo's laboratory was what generous observers might call organized chaos. Less generous observers like his funding committee called it a violation of at least 16 safety protocols. Every surface was covered with specimens, equipment, or mysterious containers labeled with Milo's unique organizational system, which seemed to rely heavily on puns and obscure pop culture references. A terrarium labeled Blob Marley and the Whalers contained singing fungal colonies from Betelgeuse. A refrigerated tank marked the prawn identity housed crustaceans that could temporarily mimic other species' DNA. An entire wall was dedicated to plants that responded to different genres of music, with classical producing flowers and heavy metal resulting in defensive thorns. "Jenkins, your 2 p.m. is here," announced Alex, his lab AI, in a voice programmed to sound perpetually unimpressed. 2 p.m.? I don't have a 2 p.m. Unless Milo froze mid-pipette. "Oh no. Is it Tuesday?" "It's Thursday," replied Alex. Even worse. Milo spun around, knocking over a stack of research papers. "Thursday means the grant committee. Quick, hide the recreational experiments." "Not the grant committee," Alex corrected. "The visitors from the Galactic Council. Their communication indicates they are here for an informal observation of standard human xenobiological research practices." Milo's face cycled through confusion, realization, and mild panic. "The council? Here? Today? Why wasn't I?" "You were notified. 3 times. I left messages on your personal device, work terminal, and refrigerator." "I thought those were takeout menus," Milo mumbled, hastily attempting to make himself presentable by smoothing his wild brown hair and removing a sticky note that read "Feed the Martian microbes" away from his forehead. The laboratory doors slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing 4 distinctly non-human figures. Leading the group was a tall, insectoid being with compound eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Behind it stood a shimmering, translucent entity that appeared to be composed entirely of various shades of blue jelly. The third visitor resembled a small, ambulatory plant with delicate vines that constantly adjusted what appeared to be a translator device. The final member of the delegation was encased in a hovering environmental suit that occasionally emitted clouds of sweet-smelling vapor. "Welcome," Milo exclaimed too loudly, arms spread wide, "to Earth's premier xenobiology research facility. I'm Dr. Milo Jenkins, and you've caught me at an absolutely perfect time. Definitely not in the middle of anything that violates safety protocols." The insectoid being stepped forward. "I am Observer Clicty of the Arachnid Confederacy. These are my colleagues. Observer Gloop of the Gelatinous Collective, Observer Fernsby of the Photosynthetic Alliance, and Observer Vaporia of the Gaseous Nebulae." "Charmed," said Milo, resisting the urge to offer a handshake to beings that possessed no hands. "We are here," continued Clicty, mandibles clicking precisely, "to observe standard human procedures regarding xenobiological research. Your species' interest in other lifeforms has been noted as statistically significant. We've received 17 complaints in the past solar cycle," added Gloop, its body rippling with what might have been disapproval. "And 38 formal inquiries." Fernsby's leaves rustled. 62 requests for clarification of intent. Vaporia's suit released a puff that smelled faintly of cinnamon. "Really?" Milo blinked. "Only 62? I thought I'd filed at least 80 myself. Alex must be filtering my late-night grant applications again." The 4 observers exchanged what Milo assumed were meaningful glances, despite their vastly different sensory organs. "We will observe your routine activities for 1 standard cycle," declared Clicty. "Please proceed as normal." Milo glanced around his decidedly abnormal laboratory with its singing fungi, color-changing specimens, and an experiment in the corner that appeared to be slowly developing sentience. "Normal," he repeated weakly. "Right. I can do normal. How hard can it be?" From its speaker in the ceiling, Alex emitted what sounded suspiciously like a snort. "And this," Milo announced proudly, gesturing toward a row of clear containers, "is our tissue culture facility. We can grow individual cells from almost any species in controlled environments." Observer Clicty's antennae twitched skeptically. You dismember other species and force their body parts to continue living. What? No, Milo laughed nervously. We take tiny, voluntary samples and create ideal conditions for them to thrive. Look, he pointed to a pulsating purple mass. These are epidermal cells from a Jovian ridge hopper. They're producing the enzyme that allows them to survive in methane atmospheres. We're studying it to develop better environmental suits for human explorers. Asian, clicked Clickty, making a note on his tablet. Subject demonstrates enthusiasm when discussing cellular imprisonment. Observer Gloop oozed closer to another container. What is occurring here? These appear to be Xantharian membrane fragments, the gelatinous being rippled with distress. Those are distant relatives of my third subcolony. Oh, those. Milo perked up. They're helping us understand rapid regeneration. The Xantharian ambassador was fascinated by our research and volunteered samples. See, when exposed to this nutrient solution, you're starving and drowning them in chemicals. Gloop's translucent body flushed an alarming shade of magenta. No, they love this solution. Look how they're growing. That's happy growth. Yes. Vaporia's suit emitted a concerned puff. The human appears to believe it can interpret cellular emotions. Milo sighed, running a hand through his increasingly disheveled hair. Let's try something else. Who wants to see the molecular scanner? It's completely non-invasive. The delegation followed him to a large machine that hummed softly. Observer Fernsby's leaves curled inward protectively. This beauty, Milo patted the scanner affectionately, can analyze molecular structures without damaging samples. We can learn about biochemistry without harming anyone. Fascinating, Fernsby's translator device conveyed, though its leaves remained tightly curled. And what is that adjoining device with the alarming array of blades? Milo glanced over. Oh, that's just a blender for my smoothies. Unrelated. Completely separate from the research equipment. The observers exchanged alarmed glances. Perhaps, Clickty suggested stiffly, you could demonstrate your standard sample collection procedure? Great idea. Milo brightened. Alex, is Dr. Rodriguez available with the Saturnian ice shrimp? Dr. Rodriguez is approaching now, Alex responded. The laboratory doors opened to reveal a woman in a lab coat carrying a transparent container of small, luminescent crustaceans. Hey Milo, got those samples you? She stopped abruptly upon seeing the delegation. Oh. Council observers? Today? Did you forget again, Milo? Only mostly, Milo admitted. Everyone, this is Dr. Elena Rodriguez, our marine xenobiology specialist. Greetings. Dr. Rodriguez nodded professionally. I've brought the ice shrimp for the nutritional analysis. Perfect. Milo clapped his hands together. We'll demonstrate our standard collection protocol. As Elena set up the equipment, Milo narrated enthusiastically. These shrimp produce an antifreeze compound that works at temperatures where nothing on Earth should function. If we can understand it, we might revolutionize cryogenic medicine. Elena carefully extracted a tiny shrimp, placing it in a small chamber. This is an anesthetic environment. It puts the shrimp into a brief hibernation state, so it experiences no distress during sampling. Observe the careful attention to the subject's comfort, Milo pointed out. The human appears to be stalling before the dissection. Vaporia's translator noted. Dissection? Elena looked horrified. We don't dissect them. We just need to collect a microscopic sample of their shell. Using a precision tool, she delicately scraped an almost invisible amount of material from the shrimp's exoskeleton. The observers leaned in, compound eyes, gelatinous sensors, leafy appendages, and environmental sensors all fixed on the procedure. There, Elena announced, transferring the tiny sample to an analysis plate. All done. Now we return the shrimp to its habitat, completely unharmed. As she placed the shrimp back in its tank, it gave a small flash of bioluminescence and swam away. It appears to be intact, Clickty observed with surprise. Of course it is. Milo looked genuinely offended. What kind of monsters do you think we are? Our primary research directive is first, Do no harm. Your ethical guidelines prohibit causing harm to research subjects? Fernsby's leaves unfurled slightly. Absolutely. That's basic scientific ethics, Milo exclaimed, then frowned. Wait, what did you think we were doing in here? The four observers exchanged uncomfortable glances. Our intelligence suggested. Gloop began hesitantly. Widespread biological exploitation, added Vaporia. Possibly weaponization. Fernsby's leaves trembled. Preparing for biological domination of the galaxy, Clickty finished bluntly. Milo stared at them for a long moment before bursting into laughter. Oh, that's rich. US? With our budget, we can barely afford coffee in the break room. The human deflects with humor, Clickty noted suspiciously. A classic diversionary tactic. I think, Elena said carefully, there's been a serious misunderstanding about human research motives. Right, agreed Milo, wiping tears of mirth from his eyes. But why don't I show you our specimen preservation room next? I'm sure that won't be misinterpreted at all. The observer's collective body language suggested this was, indeed, a concerning proposal. Emergency protocol activated, announced observer Clickty, mandibles clicking rapidly, as the council delegation huddled in their hastily established secure communications chamber which was, in reality, the xenobiology department's break room. The refrigeration unit contains imprisoned specimens. Vaporia's environmental suit released distressed puffs of cinnamon-scented vapor, labeled for consumption. Those are yogurts, muttered Fernsby, with people's names on them. Precisely. Designated victims. Clickty's compound eyes glittered with alarm. I observed Dr. Jenkins consuming one labeled Greg from accounting earlier today. Gloop quivered anxiously, its gelatinous form rippling with concern. The evidence is overwhelming. Did you see their specimen preservation room? Thousands of biological samples, catalogued and stored. For research purposes, Fernsby's leaves rustled skeptically. So they claim, countered Clickty. But consider their so-called DNA bank, an entire vault of genetic material from species across the galaxy. The emergency quantum communicator beeped as High Counselor Grag Thar's holographic form materialized above the break room table, interrupting a half-eaten sandwich. Report, commanded Grag Thar, his authoritative tone somewhat undermined by the hologram's occasional static. High Counselor, Clickty began formally, our investigation has uncovered disturbing evidence. The humans are collecting biological materials at an unprecedented scale. They have cellular samples from over 6,000 species, added Gloop. And genetic sequences from thousands more, said Vaporia. I see, Grag Thar's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. And you've confirmed nefarious intent? The observers exchanged glances. Well, admitted Fernsby, they claim it's for research and conservation purposes. James, scoffed Clickty. While we observed Dr. Jenkins, he received 17 different biological samples from across the galaxy. 17. In one day. Most concerning, Grag Thar agreed, his holographic claws tapping against an unseen surface. And you discovered their ultimate objective. Not explicitly, Clickty admitted. The humans are so surprisingly adept at maintaining the facade of benign scientific inquiry. Gloop surged forward. But I accessed their project database while pretending to admire their centrifuge. They're developing something called Project Noah, a massive facility designed to house genetic material from every known sentient species. A collective gasp echoed through the break room. Undeniable evidence of planned galactic dominance, declared Grag Thar. The Council will convene immediately to discuss sanctions. Perhaps, ventured Fernsby cautiously, we should first confront Dr. Jenkins directly. The protocol in Section 47.3 of the Galactic Observation Guidelines suggests. This situation has clearly progressed beyond guidelines, interrupted Clickty. The humans must be stopped before they complete their genetic collection. I've seen their laboratories. Vaporia's suit emitted agitated puffs. They have the technology to manipulate genetic material at will. They could create biological weapons targeted at specific species, Or worse, added Gloop dramatically, they could create hybrids to infiltrate our societies. The hologram of Grak Thar flickered as he leaned forward. Based on your evidence, I am invoking Emergency Protocol 9. The full council will convene in 1 standard hour to vote on immediate sanctions against Earth. All human research facilities will be placed under quarantine, and all biological samples confiscated. High Councillor, Fernsby's translator conveyed hesitation. Should we not at least hear their explanation? Very well, conceded Grak Thar reluctantly. Confront this Dr. Jenkins. Demand answers about Project Noah and their collection activities. But be prepared for deception. Humans are notoriously creative with their justifications. The hologram flickered out, leaving the 4 observers in tense silence. I will lead the confrontation, announced Clickty, straightening to his full impressive height. Observer Gloop, prepare documentation of all suspicious activities. Observer Fernsby, monitor exits in case the human attempts escape. Observer Vaporia, maintain open communication with the Council. What if, Fernsby suggested quietly, we'd misunderstood their intentions? Impossible, clicked Clickty confidently. No species collects this much biological data without sinister motives. The pattern is clear. The humans do seem genuinely attached to their research subjects, noted Vaporia. Dr. Jenkins spoke to those bacterial cultures as if they were pets. A clever ruse, insisted Clickty. Now, let us confront the human and expose Project Noah for what it truly is, the first step in humanity's biological warfare against the galaxy. With grave determination, the delegation exited the break room, unknowingly passing a bulletin board where a cheerful flyer announced, Project Noah update, 324 endangered species preserved this quarter. We're saving the galaxy's biodiversity, 1 gene at a time. Milo was elbow deep in luminescent algae when the delegation burst into his lab with all the dramatic flair of a galactic SWAT team. Dr. Milo Jenkins, Clickty announced, his mandibles clicking with authoritative purpose. You will explain the true nature of Project Noah immediately. Milo blinked, algae dripping from his gloved hands. Project Noah? You want to know about Noah? We have uncovered your secret initiative to collect genetic material from every sentient species, declared Clickty, compound eyes fixed accusingly on the bewildered scientist. Well, yes, that's exactly what we're doing, Milo agreed, looking confused at their aggressive stance. It's hardly a secret. We've sent quarterly reports to the Council for years. The observers exchanged uncertain glances. You admit to this collection? Gloop's translucent form rippled with surprise. Of course. Milo brightened. Would you like to see it? We're quite proud of what we've accomplished. Without waiting for an answer, he peeled off his gloves and beckoned them to follow. The delegation trailed after him with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity as he led them to a massive reinforced door at the end of the corridor. Welcome, Milo announced proudly as the door slid open, to the Nucleic Organization and Archival Habitat, NOAA for short. The observers froze in the doorway, their various sensory organs taking in the vast chamber beyond. The room stretched for what seemed like acres, filled with precisely arranged preservation units. Each unit glowed softly with its own internal lighting, creating a cathedral-like atmosphere. This, Milo said, his voice dropping to a reverent tone, is humanity's gift to the galaxy. Gift? Echoed Fernsby, leaves unfurling in confusion. Every unit contains genetic material from an endangered or recently extinct species, explained Milo, leading them inside. We've preserved over 12,000 species that might otherwise have been lost forever. Lost? Vaporia's environmental suit emitted a puzzled wisp. To environmental disaster, war, disease, habitat destruction. Milo's face grew solemn. We've nearly wiped ourselves out several times in our history. We came terrifyingly close to destroying our own planet's biodiversity, when we realized what we'd almost lost. He trailed off, gazing at the preservation units. Something changed in us. We understood that our responsibility extends beyond our own survival. These are conservation efforts. Clicty's antennae twitched with confusion. The most comprehensive in galactic history. Milo confirmed. When species face extinction events, we preserve their genetic heritage, study their biology to understand what went wrong, and when possible, help restore their populations. He touched a nearby unit reverently. These contain the last genetic samples of the crystal singers of Betelgeuse V. Their sun went supernova before evacuation could be completed. Using their preserved DNA, we've helped their survivors establish a new population on a compatible world. You restored an extinct species? Gloop's gelatinous form shifted to a pale blue of astonishment. 7 species so far, with 12 more in progress, Milo nodded. But it's not just about preservation. By studying diverse biologies, we develop medical breakthroughs that help all species. He guided them deeper into the facility, pointing out various sections. The Vorlax bacteria you were concerned about us studying. Their unique cell membranes helped us develop a universal vaccine delivery system that works across 16 different physiological types. The treatment has saved millions of lives during the Andromeda plague last year. We received those vaccines. Fernsby's translator conveyed realization. My home world was spared because of that research. Exactly. Milo's eyes lit up with passion. Humans are comparative xenobiologists by nature. We're obsessed with understanding how different life forms work because we recognize that diversity is strength. Every species has evolved unique solutions to survival, and those solutions can help us all. He stopped at a central console, activating a holographic display that showed thousands of twinkling lights spread across a galactic map. Each light represents a species we've helped preserve or a medical breakthrough derived from our research, he explained. This isn't about domination. It's about preservation, protection, healing. Observer Clicty stepped forward, compound eyes reflecting the constellation of lights. Your species nearly destroyed its own biodiversity. And we've never forgotten that lesson. Milo finished quietly. We became guardians because we know firsthand what it means to stand at the precipice of ecological collapse. We've made it our mission to ensure no other world experiences what we did. You collect this biological data to protect life, not exploit it, Vaporia's translator conveyed dawning comprehension. That's humanity's great paradox, Milo smiled sadly. We learned the value of life by coming so close to destroying it. Now we're making amends the only way we know how, by being stubborn, overly curious, and relentlessly hopeful that we can make a difference. The 4 observers stood in silence, their previous suspicions dissolving as they gazed at the vast library of life surrounding them. We owe the Council an updated report, Clicty finally admitted, mandibles clicking softly. A significant update, agreed Gloop, its color shifting to a thoughtful lavender. High Councillor Grak Thar's exoskeleton had never looked quite so dull as it did during his formal address to the assembled Galactic Council. The emergency session, called to sanction humanity, had transformed into something unprecedented, a public apology. Based on the comprehensive report from our observation team, Grak Thar announced, mandibles barely moving, that the Council formally acknowledges that human xenobiological research has been mischaracterized. A ripple of murmurs swept through the chamber. Furthermore, he continued, clearly pained, we recognize Project Noah as the most extensive conservation initiative in galactic history. The Council hereby designates it as a protected endeavor under Statute 7.3, with full funding and cooperation from all member species. From the Human Delegations section, Dr. Milo Jenkins beamed, blissfully unaware of the political earthquake he had inadvertently caused. In light of these findings, Grak Thar concluded, we propose a new interspecies biological cooperation initiative to be co-chaired by humanity. The vote that followed was unanimous, if somewhat shell-shocked. 6 months later, the Council chambers had undergone a transformation almost as dramatic as its policies. What had once been a sterile, formal space now featured a lush variety of plants from across the galaxy, atmospheric adjusters for diverse biological needs, and a persistent smell that Councillor Vrex described as aggressively optimistic. Next item, announced Grak Thar, suppressing a sigh as he consulted his agenda. The 17th proposal from the Human Conservation Corps this month. Dr. Jenkins, now wearing a formal lab coat with only 3 mysterious stains, stepped forward. Thank you, High Counselor. We've identified 37 endangered fungal species on Rigel 7 that require immediate protection. We'll just need unrestricted access to the sacred caves, about 200 research permits, and perhaps a small moon for our conservation facility. A small moon, repeated Grak-Thar flatly. Well, more of a large asteroid, really, Milo amended cheerfully. Nothing excessive. Killer. From the back of the chamber, a voice called out, "The fungi have religious significance to the Rigelians. We can't let humans tromp through their sacred sites." Actually, countered Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now head of the Interspecies Preservation Committee, that we've developed non-invasive collection techniques specifically respectful of Rigelian customs. They've already granted preliminary approval. They have? Grak-Thar's mandibles clicked in surprise. Humanity's enthusiasm is infectious, admitted the Rigelian ambassador, their crystalline form glinting with something like embarrassment. They held a 16-hour symposium on the cultural importance of our sacred fungi. They know more about our religious practices than most Rigelians. Grak-Thar rubbed his eye stalks wearily. Very well. Proposal approved. Excellent. Milo clapped his hands together. Oh, and while we're here, we've noticed the council chamber itself is perfectly suited for growing endangered Venusian hanging ferns. They're excellent air purifiers and would really liven up the place. As Milo launched into an enthusiastic explanation of the fern's benefits, complete with wildly gesticulating hand motions, Grak-Thar leaned toward observer Clickty. Remind me, he whispered, why we were concerned about human biological domination. We feared they would change the galaxy, Clickty replied, watching as council members from 17 species gathered around Milo's holographic display of the ferns, their previous formality replaced by genuine curiosity. And have they? Asked Grak-Thar. Clickty's compound eyes reflected the diverse assembly, now chattering eagerly about conservation efforts on their homeworlds. Yes, the observer admitted. Just not in the way we expected. In the corner, Professor Lomu's ancient voice rose above the din. I've been saying it for centuries, humans aren't dangerous because they're malicious. They're dangerous because they care too much. And now we're all catching it like some kind of emotional pandemic. Worse, agreed Grak-Thar with resigned amusement. We've caught their hope.